questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer. Right or wrong, raping children?
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens?
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States?
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness, who somehow is a lawyer but does not...
Representative Jasmine Crockett leans forward in the House Judiciary Committee hearing, fixes her gaze on Attorney General Pam Bondi, and delivers a line that stops the room cold. We are currently the laughingstock of the world. She doesn't even bother asking a question. Instead, she unleashes a blistering takedown of the Department of Justice's handling of the Epstein files, calling it a massive failure, a big cover-up, and accusing this administration of being actively complicit. The silence that followed her opening salvo was absolutely deafening. Lawmakers shifted in their seats. Survivors seated directly behind the witness table watched with visible intensity. In just a few minutes, Crockett turned what should have been a standard questioning round into one of the most memorable and viral moments of the entire February 11th, our 2026 oversight hearing. The atmosphere in the hearing room around the 1:20 mark was thick with tension. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas, already famous for her sharp, no-nonsense style that consistently goes viral in these recaps, spoke with calm but cutting precision. Her delivery was direct, her words measured yet loaded with frustration. Attorney General Pam Bondi sat at the witness table, her body language growing more defensive with every passing second. You could see the subtle shifts, tightened posture, occasional glances away, hands adjusting papers. Behind Bondi, Epstein survivors sat watching the exchange, their presence adding heavy emotional weight to every accusation. The chairman attempted to maintain procedural order, but the rising heat and occasional crosstalk made it clear this was no ordinary oversight moment. Crockett made it crystal clear from the start that she wasn't interested in playing the usual polite back and forth. She had come prepared to call out what she saw as systemic failure, and she refused to waste her limited time on questions she believed would not receive honest answers. Crockett began by stating plainly that she would not be asking any questions because the witness had already demonstrated she did not understand how to testify properly or how to give straight answers under oath. She slammed the Department of Justice for failed leadership at the highest level. She pointed to the partial release of only approximately 3 million pages out of more than 6 million demanded by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. She highlighted the documented anomalies that have shocked even longtime observers, sloppy redactions that protected the names of powerful abusers, enablers, and potential co-conspirators, while exposing victims' most sensitive personal information, including private nude photographs that later led to survivors receiving unwanted contact and further trauma. Crockett declared without hesitation that this was not mere incompetence, this was a big cover-up, that this administration was still engaged in it, and in fact was complicit in protecting those who should be held accountable. She went further, predicting that history would remember Pam Bondi as one of the worst attorneys general in modern memory, as someone who chose loyalty to the president over loyalty to the rule of law and justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific network. As the tension peaked, she yielded the balance of her time, reportedly storming out in visible frustration as the exchange concluded. Bondi attempted to interject and pivot several times, at one point firing back about other political figures and their past associations, but Crockett's relentless monologue had already dominated the moment, leaving the room buzzing with overlapping voices and raw, unfiltered emotion. She said the redactions were shielding the powerful while harming the vulnerable. She said the DOJ's actions amounted to obstruction and active complicity in a continuing cover-up. Bondi tried to defend the scale of the release and the effort involved, sure, but the contrast was stark, and the accusations landed with force. The back and forth exposed the deep partisan and procedural fractures that have defined the entire Epstein Files saga. To fully appreciate why this confrontation struck such a nerve, we must examine the documented record without spin. The The Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed with strong bipartisan support precisely to force the release of millions of pages, photographs, videos, and other materials related to Jeffrey Epstein's vast sex trafficking operation. By February 2026, the Department of Justice under Attorney General Pam Bondi had produced roughly half of the demanded materials, around 3 to 3.5 million pages. Yet from the very beginning, the production has been plagued by documented anomalies. Co-conspirator names and details about powerful individuals were heavily redacted, sometimes with little explanation. At the same time, victims' private information, contact details, and in many cases explicit photographs were inadvertently left exposed, causing additional pain and real-world harassment for survivors who had already suffered enough. Despite the enormous volume of documents released, there have been zero new high-profile prosecutions or indictments of named enablers and accomplices. Many survivors have publicly confirmed they were never contacted by the DOJ for interviews or cooperation. This hearing took place against that backdrop of growing frustration from both sides of the aisle, but Crockett's sharp Texas delivery transformed a routine oversight round into a moment that millions would later watch and share. Let's suppose for a moment that I am sitting as special counsel with the task of auditing this entire document production for compliance with the Transparency Act. The contradictions become glaring and difficult to defend. The law was clear: maximum transparency with only narrow justified protections for victim identities. Instead, the opposite pattern emerged. Powerful names received careful shielding while victim material slipped through the cracks, leading to further victimization. These are the radioactive receipts sitting in the public record, FBI documents that explicitly name individuals as possible co-conspirators in child sex trafficking activities, yet those same names remain blacked out or minimized even after congressional pressure. Where is the detailed timeline for pursuing indictments based on the evidence already in hand? Why has there been no clear accounting of who authorized specific redactions or why victim photographs were not properly protected? Good faith compliance demands more than volume. It demands honesty about the decision-making process behind every black bar and every delay. The forensic evidence from the released files shows that the names were present, the selective redactions were applied, and powerful associations continue to trigger intense defensiveness at the highest levels of the department. These documented anomalies raise fundamental questions about whether institutional loyalty is being placed above the pursuit of justice for the survivors who sat in that hearing room bearing witness to the proceedings. And then came the true climax of the exchange. Representative Jasmine Crockett walked Attorney General Pam Bondi straight into a buzzsaw. Rather than engaging in the scripted question and answer format, she used her time for a direct, unflinching monologue that laid bare what she sees as systemic failure and complicity. The room was absolutely stunned as she declared the United States the laughingstock of the world because of this failed leadership on the Epstein files. She labeled the handling a continuing big cover-up with the current administration actively engaged and complicit. She delivered a stark prediction that Bondi would be remembered as one of the worst attorneys general in history for choosing political loyalty over accountability. You could feel the energy in the room shift dramatically. Lawmakers exchanging glances, survivors reacting with visible emotion, the weight of the accusations hanging heavy in the air like smoke. The silence that followed her most pointed lines was deafening. It was not theatrical pause for effect. It was the stunned recognition that sharp, unrelenting oversight was being met not with substantive answers or timelines, but with deflection, counterattacks, and procedural maneuvering. This was a masterclass in confrontation, turning what could have been a forgettable 5-minute round into a viral moment that exposed the deep fractures in how the Epstein files continue to be handled, even years after the scandal first broke. What does this fiery confrontation ultimately reveal about the broader Epstein files scandal? It demonstrates how deeply radioactive the entire issue remains, crossing administrations and continuing to generate intense controversy. When a lawmaker as direct as Jasmine Crockett chooses to use her limited time not for polite questions but to accuse the Department of Justice of complicity and obstruction, and the response offers little more than deflection, public trust erodes even further. Government accountability should never be about shielding the powerful or prioritizing political loyalty over delivering justice to the victims of one of the most horrific sex trafficking networks in American history. The broader implications are sobering and urgent. Powerful networks still appear to cast long shadows across these files. Survivors continue waiting for meaningful prosecutions and complete unredacted access, and the slow, aselective drip of releases keeps producing far more questions than concrete answers. Moments like Crockett's sharp round only intensify the demand for real transparency. No more half measures, no more selective redactions that protect the guilty while harming the innocent, and no more delays in holding every named individual accountable regardless of status or connections. If you want more in-depth breakdowns of these explosive hearing moments, the documented anomalies still emerging from the Epstein files releases, and fresh developments as they continue to unfold, make sure to subscribe right now and turn on notifications. New videos drop whenever the public record produces something worth examining in careful detail. In the near future, we may finally see the full picture and real accountability, but only if relentless pressure and sharp questioning like this continue without pause. This video is dramatized for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not official news nor legal advice. All footage and quotes are from public congressional proceedings.